Hello, everyone. D. Alfred Ostrowski here. In this recording, I'm going to be giving a tutorial / demonstration of the Aptos network working through the first fungible asset tutorial. Here we'll be handling move, compile, minting, transferring fungible assets between a few accounts on the Aptos DevNet framework. We're going to be leveraging TypeScript for this particular example, and as usual, I will be using AWS EC2 instance. I've already taken the liberty of starting up a T2 instance on Ubuntu 20.04, my default standard, and everything else is defaulted. If you want to see those steps, you might want to take a look at some of the earlier videos where I did that. And I already have a couple terminals brought up. I have the base installation. I'm going to be running through the installation. Now, if you ran through some of the earlier Aptos examples, I'm using exactly the same resources for that. So if you have that up and running, you can fast forward a couple minutes and expedite that. But I'm going to step through that because, as usual, and my point is these examples, they're always changing, and I find very few resources with these examples that work exactly out of the box. Some type of slight adjustments that have to be made. In this case, the Aptos documentation is admittedly pretty good. And why TypeScript? Okay, they have Python, Rust examples. Nothing against those two languages. I am an advocate of both. However, TypeScript is the preferred language. Maybe at some point I'll go back and take a step through some of the examples using either Python or especially Rust, since Rust is a primary influence on the development of the Move programming. So here I have a home Ubuntu default directory. I don't have a project directory set up for this. And here we're just using this as a sandbox. And as usual, running through all my commands are to be found on my README install file on the associated GitHub at the bottom of this video. So here I just ran through a sudo apt-get update, just running through my steps. Again, if you have this set up already, you might want to fast forward it. And I'm doing a node source install as I've done on some of the prior recordings. And purpose of this is to get me to the more current Node 20 version on Ubuntu. I'm not going to get into the weeds I have on this with the Unix install. I have some resources. You can take a look at some of the finer details on this here. Primary goal is get you up and running with your first fungible asset with Move and Aptos on their DevNet framework, right? So here we're just completing the final steps for the node source install. I'm going to define 20 as the version. Set up a few extra steps and then do the formal install. I'm going to do one more sudo apt-get update. It may seem a little extraneous since we already ran one, but I had some problems prior and I found myself running through this again. Now I'm doing the formal install in Node.js. And once that up and running, I can validate the node. And the beauty of this network, obviously, is that I don't have to beg for resources. They have the built-in faucet. And I can immediately deploy to the .NET framework. I don't have to do local simulation. Let's say what I would use with Hardhat or Ganesh on Ethereum, right? So here I validated that version of Node up and running. Let's install the Aptos library, in this case, now using the later version of Node with the npm installer. And I'm going to install p and pm in similar fashion, sudo in front of that. When all else fails, use sudo in front of your commands. That's something I live by. I'm going to put in the pip3 installer. Python 3 is a default on Ubuntu 20.04, but I need to do a specialized update It may be slightly counterintuitive to use Python for the install, but we use pip3 for the command line interface for the Aptos command. So here I'm using the Python pip3. Here it's prompting me. I'm just going to default for the system startup. So wait for it. And so I got Python 3 up, and now I'm going to install the Aptos SDK. Again, everything's on the README install, so you can follow through, hopefully get up and running inside 20 minutes or so, plus or minus, and have some of the basic operations being managed here. Here I'm installing the Aptos core.git, and now I'm going to be installing the command line interface for Aptos. CLI installer through Python 3, which is again is the default here. So let's give this a few seconds to complete. Now, once the Aptos CLI is up and running, I need to make sure I have the right environment path. Otherwise, if I just do Aptos at command line, it's not going to find it. I can set up an environment variable here, just do it quick and dirty. So I'm just going to set up a home Ubuntu local bin path and test it that way, right? So here, and I'm just going to cut paste this in again, just working from my GitHub, and I'm up and running with the Aptos CLI, right? So next I'm going to cd to the examples TypeScript directory, no project directory here, do a npm install and get our example underway here. So I'm going to be running the your fungible asset.ts code as defined under the FACoin directory. So let's wait for the pnpm install to work. And I backed all this up to my GitHub, but you're not going to do a clone on that. You're not going to get the complete environment due to the size it thrifted out some of the node modules, to my understanding. So I'm doing a npm your fungible asset ts and run it on a specified directory. So it's going to bring up 3 addresses, and then it's going to wait for me to do compile. I'm going to use the other prompt for that. So I have 3 addresses with 3 accounts that are automatically generated, and I've set up another terminal. Okay, and just bring that up here in the inset. And I have the move compile command. I can't take it verbatim, right? Because I have to change the address. I'm going to grab the address from the first. Unlike following tutorials where I'm going to do actual deeper dive with their tutorial on build and compile your own move module, here we're doing it indirectly with their example actually, but I need to grab this address to pass it into the compile command, and then I come back to complete the operation here. And we're going to step through the code when we're done, but first things first, let's just make sure that everything's up and running. So before I run this, I want to make sure I'm under the correct directory. So let me cd to that because I'm just on the new directory. I'm only under home Ubuntu. So let me find that directory so I can get to it. And so here I'm going to move to the move examples directory here and do that compile, right? And now I can bring that in. I specified the path for Aptos. Since I obviously don't have it here, you typically do an environment file and do a source on the environment file if you haven't brought it up automatically, right? So here we can run the compile and let's see that complete. So this is going to give us the transaction hash on the result, and we can look up our example on the DevNet Explorer. Okay, once we have that up and running, I'm just going to buffer this here for easy access, right? Let's make sure I get that. And now I can go back to the first example. We'll go step through the code in a second. Let's just watch it complete. So we have a lot of activity going on here. We have the initial coin balances are generated. We do a mint, 100 coins, we'll update the asset, fungible store balance for Charlie to 100, and then a freeze on Bob accounts, and then unfortunately transfer the minted coins of Charlie to Bob, ignoring that it's frozen, update the FA coin balances, updated balance is printed out here, and then an unfreeze on an account is performed. Alice burns 50 coins from Bob and prints out the updated balance, does a transfer from Bob to Alice, and then we have 1040, and then it's done. So we're able to initiate these accounts on DevNet, able to perform the minting, transfer, burning, freezing, unfreezing the accounts as specified. Let's bring up the Aptos Explorer, and I have this here buffered again. All the references are on the README file that I specified, right? So let me just bring in my Aptos Explorer, and you want to make sure you bring it up. Sometimes it just defaults to main. I want to make sure I'm under DevNet. I have that here, and I'm going to pull this down so I can see it and make sure I'm under looking up the transaction address. Okay, so I have transactions here, and now I can bring up that address that I had just generated right from the compile command. And it wouldn't worked until it's actually published. The publish was managed when I returned to the first terminal, right? So let's make sure it's on the DevNet, and it shows up here with that transaction hash. And I have an address that I can validate this with, right? And I can see I have a publish package, mint, freeze, count, transfer, unfreeze, burn, all these activities. It is the X8 A9B, and the timing is matching my timing on the screen. Just make sure I'm not referencing something else. So let's just look at that X8 A9B. There we go. So that is Alice's account, and that's associated with these transactions, and I was able to validate that on Explorer. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the code and take a look at, so now we know what happened, right? And now let's figure out exactly how that is matched up to the code and really get a deeper understanding, right? So let's go into the Fungible Assets. I'm just using VI just so we can take a look at the file. I'm not doing any serious editing here, or really no editing. So I have import on the files. Node URL faucet as usual. Okay, the examples provided here, it directs us right to the DevNet Explorer. We don't have to overthink this, right? It's very conveniently done for us. And again, it's very convenient from the perspective of generating your accounts and getting funds to those accounts. I don't have to worry about a faucet or anything. It's all managed from the perspective that I can handle it with my TypeScript. I don't have to go to a faucet and go through any type of extra work to accomplish that. Here we're managing read line. I'm managing standard in and out. And then we have an admin client with the constructor that's associated with the network. And some of the basic operations are found here. And these are all out of FA Coin. And we're going to take a look at the move module to get a little bit more of a detail, but they're initiated from the TypeScript file here. And it's a little bit cumbersome doing command line, but you could potentially do this from command line and step through in similar fashion that I've done with, let's say, Hardhat with Node.js command line as a means of testing. But here, again, let's just complete through the code here. We have a consistency with all these modules. We have a generate transaction that's occurring here, assign, submit, and then returning pending hash. Okay, here we're performing that for the transfer coin. With similar nature with mint coin, calling FA coin mint. We'll take a look at the move code that it is initiating in a few seconds here. Burn coin works in the same fashion. And I'm reading in the admin with the Aptos account and the from address and the amount. Perform the burn coin. And similar nature with the freeze and doing a sign submit and return a transaction. Similarly with the unfreeze, okay, working through that code, you can see, again, very, very similar nature. And then we have a function to return the balance of the newly minted coin using the get data. Okay, so here in the main function, we initiate the client for the fungible asset as well as the faucet. I create 3 accounts for my 3 users. I print out those addresses. We use that for the move compile as input. I fund 2 of the accounts, Alice and Bob. And then we have that prompt, right, that waited for us. Now here, the publish of the move modules handled with the TypeScript code as we proceed. Does a read file sync, pulls in that move code and does an actual publish package. Grab the metadata and print out the associated balances for my 3 clients. Now we're doing the actual minting that's being managed by Alice. It mints 100 coins for Charlie, and then we just exercise the freeze. Here, Alice as administrator can forcibly transfer the newly minted coins of Charlie to Bob, ignoring that it's frozen. And you could test this a number of different ways, trying to do it from a non-administrator and do supported assertion testing to test that out. And then prints out the console logs for the unfreeze of the account, burning of the coins, and the updated balance. Here we're doing a transfer 10 coins and then the associated account balances. And that's it. Those are the basic operations. Let's take a quick look at the move code. And again, it's best accessed from the separate directory here. You have move toml file, and we could just go down to drill down to sources to actually see the move module here. As you'll notice, as opposed to the first coin tutorial, we have a lot more code supporting this particular implementation. So I have FA coin that's being generated for fungible asset. I have a struct defined for the mint, transfer, burn references. I have an init module. Init module runs before anything else, right? It runs on the publication and it's just doesn't have to be separately run. It runs in similar fashion to a constructor and allows for the appropriate initialization. We'll get a little bit deeper in the weeds as I generate some additional content on compile and publication of your own move module. So here we associate a name, symbol, icon, project, and we default to this. Now we have a transfer references for burn, minting, and transfer, and signer, and we move that to that associate structure so it has a general means of access. Now we have the functions that were initiated by that TypeScript code. Right here I have the get metadata, and that grabs the asset address and retrieves the associated information. Here I have a mint operation, and you see these follow consistency as well. I have to do an authorization on the references, a function to check that the store exists, an actual mint from fungible asset, and then a deposit with reference, okay, under mint. Similar fashion with the transfer and authorization. Primary store, it's going to give me the from and to wallet addresses, and then the actual transfer is using those references. similar nature with the burn, we do an authorization and a primary store giving the from wallet address, and similar nature with the freeze account. Once again, grabbing the associated references and taking the transfer reference and the wallet, okay, to give it the freeze, as well as with the unfreeze, where I have a set frozen flag that is being initiated under Fungible Asset. We have the withdraw with the transfer reference from wallet, okay, following in pretty much same consistency, and the deposit code to do another authorization and ensuring that the store exists, and then the associated reference. The authorization module is supported here, and this allows for the reference to be validated, okay? And then we have some testing for the basic flow, and which wasn't specifically examined in this particular example, but we can take a step back, go to this once we look at some of the operations with the management of your move module from the ground up. Okay, so there you have it, some of the basic operations with Fungible Asset. We validated it on the DevNet, and as usual, everything is on a neutral architecture that you can immediately get up and running with this code. Everything is posted to my GitHub. So good luck with that. Hope this helps. Thanks for listening. Take care. Talk to you soon. Thank you.